Good evening, everyone. Back in the 1920s, Brands Hatch was an area in Kent that was effectively a grassy hollow that was shaped a little bit like an amphitheatre that you would get from productions of dramatic performances. Think the Globe Theatre in London with Shakespeare's productions. Think other dramatic support acts all over the world. Brands Hatch has been steeped in history. From the wonderful era of Formula One when Joe Siffett fought with Chris Amon, right the way through to the modern day where it hosts premier championships from the British GTs to the finale of the Quick Fit British Touring Car Championship and, of course, the Bennett British Superbike Championship as well. But tonight, the drivers are going to be performing their own drums and sound and thunder for round 10 of the championship. Here with ACC Race Nation, I'm Jack Millington, your commentator as always for the championship. We're in season 11 and we are coming into the business end of the championship. A lot to cover in the next 20 minutes as we're about to tick over from practice into qualifying. We've got drivers out on circuit currently getting their practice times in before we shuffle over. There is one of the drivers in second place at the moment, Stuart Packham in the Bentley GT3 there in the 108 car, just a little bit behind the provisional practice pace setter that is Sebastian Berger. But right now, he has a little wobble on the exit of Clark Curve there at Tyre 9. The Bentley is going to prove to be no doubt a handful around this circuit. We have got 21 drivers fighting this evening. I know it says 22 in the top left corner, but that information is skewed slightly by the fact that the commentator is classed as an extra driver. Fabio Matt just following Mark Chapman as they go down towards Pilgrim's Drop in between turns 4 and 5. And this is going to be an exciting event. It always is around here. It's a challenging circuit at the best of times, as Fabio Matt proves as he goes off the road, and he's going to hit the wall, I think. Yes, he does, going into turn number, between 5 and 6 at Hawthorns and Westfield. So less than ideal for Fabio in his practice, the Italian currently in 14th place. Tony Sokolov as well, a race winner throughout this season, out on circuit. He's just getting his final lap in practice. But as I was saying, this is going to be an exciting event. A difficult circuit to overtake on, but I think it will be compounded by drivers having issues tonight in terms of mistakes. We shall see how they adapt to the grip surface changes that we are expecting this evening as Dennis Penders gets himself out and ready for qualifying. We are into the official qualifying session here at Brands Hatch. And as we get the number 81 and Mark Gray coming out of the pit lane. Just so you're aware, these are the championship standings at the moment, and what a turn up for the books this has been. I was a little bit worried about Danny Zoutenbayer, the reigning season 10 champion at the start of this season, but he has been on a mission, and after winning at Paul Ricard 2 weeks ago, he's leading the championship championship still on 232 points. Mark Chapman is second on 226 points. Stuart Packham is third on 225. Jeffrey Van Buren is fourth on 218. Davy Zoutenbayer, Danny's brother, is on 217 in fifth place. Last week's race winner, Tony Sokolov, is on 216. Dennis Penders is seventh on 197. Hartle Toby got another podium last week in that Mustang. He's on 187 points there in 8th place. Mark Gray, who we're following on the external cameras here as he turns into Sterling's, he's in 9th place in the championship on 181. He didn't compete last week, so it's dropped him down the field a little bit. And then Jordan Harding, who is here tonight as well, he didn't compete last week, but he's 10th on 178 points. So the championship is very compressed at the top, I have to say, from Danny Zoutenbayer, who leads on 232, to Tony Sokolov in 6th on 216. With 5 rounds to go after this event, that's all to play for. You could even say the drivers who are 7th, 8th, 9th, maybe even Jordan in 10th place, they've all got opportunities to strike back for the rest of the season. But we'll see how they do tonight. Today is really a critical time for them to start making some moves into the championship contention. They have to make a positive impact tonight. And speaking of positive impacts, we also do need to briefly just talk about some information that you'll be needing to be aware of. Of course, last week, in terms of the top 3 drivers, they all have to carry ballast. So what that means effectively is that they'll be carrying 30 kilos of weight if you won the race last week, 20 kilos for second place, and then 15 kilos for those that finished in the third. So Tony Sokolov, if we cut back to the garage, over to see that Tony Sokolov, where is he on circuit? There he is, the number 100, last week's race winner. He'll have to carry 30 kilos thanks to his victory in Suzuka. The next driver who will be carrying some ballast will be Mark Chapman. Just having a look to see where Chappers is. There he is in 15th right now, yet to set a lap time, but then again, there aren't any valid lap times that have come in just yet. We're still very early on in the session and its creation. And then he will be followed by Hartle Toby, which is down in 20th place at the moment, but again, yet to set a valid lap time as the first one starts to just fly in now, Dennis Penders being one of them. And Hartle Toby, he finished third, so he'll be carrying a little bit of ballast as well. Hartle Toby's had 5 races this season where he's had to carry ballast, so he's getting a lot of impact from strong race results that he's having as he goes up into second place with that first effort, just less than 2/10 behind Tony Sokolov, who is definitely in contention for the championship. One of the 6 main protagonists at the moment, but that could all change. You could still have a few more out there. You can do a lot more. As Sokolov goes down the inside of Jacob Byford-Rue there. As Byford-Rue looks like he's having a few issues just getting the BMW sorted out in a straight line. Not sure quite what was happening to him. Jeffrey Van Buren, he's in 4th position. Dennis Penders in 5th. Let's have a look at the next driver to come along. I think that is, I want to say that's Rich Jarram coming across the line of the Lamborghini. It is, but he's going on to another lap. You've got Fabio Matt in the Ferrari, and he moves into 6th place. That's an initial gambit from him. And Jeffrey Van Buren has moved into 2nd place, so he's had another lap time there. That's put him further up through the field. Howard Dunn in 15th place goes on to his first flying effort. Joe Warner's going to come along, and that's an improvement from him. But there's a lot more time to be found from the gold and grey M4 GT3. He's got Tony Manley right behind him as well. Jordan Harding now moving into 5th position in the qualifying times. Again, still a long way to go. This is far from over. I think Mark Chapman just coming across the line there. He does indeed. No improvement from him. What about Michael van der Waal, the Dutchman? looking to break back into the top 10, and he does with that flying effort. It's a good time. Liam Watkinson now in the McLaren. He comes across the line, continues on. So the drivers still trying to find their rhythms at the moment. What I will make a clear point on is that Stuart Packham will not be qualifying. He makes the decision to start from the back, so that's going to be quite challenging for one of the championship contenders to try and pull his way back through the field. We see how he does, but Brands Hatch, as I said before, not an easy circuit to overtake on in the slightest. Liam Watkinson running a little bit wide there between Graham Hill and Surtees. Just looking to find who else. There's Howard Dunn coming around the final corner at Clark. At turn 9, he blasts towards the line. What can that AMR V8 do? And it does put him up to third place. That's a really good lap. He was looking very strong in practice, was done. As I say, that little bit of commentator's curse. He has a little bit of oversteer and goes off the circuit. Jeffrey Van Buren is at the top of the pile at the moment. But Mark Chapman has done a lap time that puts him into third place. So former champion is Chappers, but way back in season 2. He's looking to get a second championship crown. And what's that qualifying time that he's going to do? Marginal improvement by 0.08 of a second. Also saw Jordan Harding going into 7th position. So we're just watching a number of other cars going around the track at the minute. Just looking to see where Dennis Penders is. It looks like he is on track. It's a good lap time so far from Dennis. He's in 4th currently. He blasts towards the start-finish line. And he goes up to 4th. So Penders looking very competitive here in the opening half of our qualifying session of Season 11 of ACC Race Nation. It's a good effort from him. I'd quite like to get a lap on board with a driver, and I'm looking at Danny Zoutenbayer, so I think he'll be the one that we're going to cover. Championship leader, reigning champion, of course, of Season 10. So let's do a lap with him as he comes round Clark's for the end of this lap. So he's going to blast towards turn 1, down Bradman Straight, as he clips over the grass and onto this first lap. So he's gone up to pole position for the time being. Down through the gears into Paddock Hill Bend. Second gear, third gear, short shifting to keep the car stable. Nicely run through there as he now has to approach Druids. Takes a tighter line, first gear, clambers over the curbs a little bit, but he is still up marginally on his lap time, and he loses a touch. Down into Graham Hill Bend at the left hand, the second gear for him. The car wants to drift down a little bit further wide, but the traction on the Ferrari looking very strong. Into Surtees, taking the middle road approach, short shifts up to second again for the reigning champion. Little kink right as he goes through Pilgrim's Drop underneath the GT branding there, and then into Hawthorne Bend. A difficult corner to try and get right. You've got to spot your braking zone. Very fast right-hander. A touch wide from the Ferrari. He's going to have to make up the time now into the right-hander at Westfield. He's going to run all over the curb and use all of the traction that he's got available to him. Then it's into Sheen Curve, turn 7, a nice short shift again. I'm noticing there's a lot of behaviour going on with the Ferrari as he dips down into turn 8 at Sterling's. I was saying that he's short shifting a little bit just to keep the traction together. He's marginally improving. Into the final corner we go. Over the curb at the right hand side. The car's unsettled a little bit. It's all going to be about momentum now towards the line. It's going to be a marginal improvement, if no improvement at all. He doesn't improve in the end. It by a 100th of a second. Our Season 10 champion ended up just losing that little bit of traction off the corner. But as I was saying, Zoutenbayer deciding short shifting is the way to go, just to keep that car pointing in the direction that he wants it to. Jeffrey Van Buren running in second place. Sokolov is 4th. Here's Howard Dunn. He's having a great qualifying session so far. He is improving on this lap time. Round the final corner, a little bit of slide through there, but no harm done as he comes towards the start-finish line. They get a very distant tow from Liam Watkinson in front of him, and it's provisional pole from Howard Dunn. I mean, that is a turn-up. We weren't expecting that lap time from the AMR V8, but that is a fabulous qualifying effort so far. Even if he doesn't retain pole position, he's the first driver into the 23s, and that is very competitive. So great effort. He'll be highly encouraged by that, Will Howard. Had the first top 5 position of the season last week, did Howard, and at the moment he's on the front row. He's been just displaced in the last 30 seconds, but by Jeffrey Van Buren by 7 thousandths of a second. Zoutenbayer coming towards the line once again in that split livery, but no improvement there. Chappers is in 4th. There's Sokolov in 5th place. Pender's in 6th. Oh, as he goes very wide at turn 7. We've got to be careful through there. This is one of the things about this circuit, ladies and gentlemen, is that whilst overtaking might be at a premium, it will be testing our ACC Race Nation drivers. They're going to find it difficult to recover from a mistake because the walls are so close. It does almost feel like a street circuit at times, and there's not much runoff, so a mistake here could cost them dearly in the race. So that'll be in the back of the drivers' minds, and Pender's flirted very close to danger there with that little incident going through the gravel at Sheen Curve. Hartle-Toby, don't forget, he's carrying the weight in terms of the extra 15 kilos of ballast. He's in 8th position at the moment. We look at the other drivers who are carrying ballast. Just have a quick scan through of the drivers who are. So Tony Sokolov is one of those drivers. He's in 5th place at the moment. Don't forget, winning last week. And Chapman is the other one. So the ballast not affecting the AMR or the Ferrari as much as the Mustangs. I'd argue that the Mustang around here, it's probably not the best circuit for the American car. However, we have seen Hartle-Toby put in some really strong performances, so do not rule him out moving up the field. He actually improved them by 5 thousandths of a second. As Mark Gray goes around turn 7, someone else has been into the gravel through there. I think it was Penders again, actually, according to the track map. So Belgian certainly flirting with danger as Jordan Harding moves into 6th position. We've got 7¼ minutes remaining in qualifying. We go back to Howard Dunn, who is tracking Tony Sokolov in front of us. He's not improving on this lap, but Sokolov is. This is looking like an almighty effort from Sokolov towards the line, and he doesn't improve. So the timing tower was incorrect. It looked as if he was 6/10 up, but in actual fact he went 3 thousandths of a second slower. Oh, that was a little bit close. I think Sokolov and Dunn were trying to move out of each other's way, and then they both weren't on push laps. I think that's what happened there, so I'm sure they'll be able to debate about that later on themselves. Chapman very wide as he goes through 6. I've got to be careful there. That's one of those areas where if you do get onto the grass, you can fly off the road and into the barriers quite hard. Tony Manley still getting himself around the circuit. He's trying to set a valid lap time. It would help if he doesn't dip a wheel into the grass. I'm sure that's not the fastest way to go racing. Maybe lawnmowing, but not today. A couple of cars all together here. You got Mark Chapman just in front of the number 55 of Dan Hatton, who is in between us right now. So it's 24.4 from Jordan Harding, and Hatton going a little bit quicker as he goes very, very wide on the exit of Paddock Hill Bend. Michael van der Waal just getting out of the way. But Dan Hatton, he's carrying on with this routine at the moment of being very quick, but I'm waiting for that moment for him to confirm his place in the top 3. He's had a couple of very strong results. I always come back to Zolder at round 4, where he was really strong, and he's had a couple of top 10 results since then. But what is really key for Dan is the consistency. That's what he's looking for. He's got the pace, he's got the speed to arguably be fighting for second row, even first row starts, but he has to find that consistency, and that's going to be key for tonight's race as Chappers get out of the way. There's Nick Lamming. He's managed to get himself into the session, which is good to see him in the lobby. And Nick, another driver who he's had his good moments, he's had his bad moments at times. He had a wonderful 12th place as we go past the 467 of Jacob Byford-Rue, who's had a massive spin going through Sheen Curve. But Nick Lamming, he's had some good moments, you know, and at Paul Ricard, he finished 12th. He had a really strong race at Paul Ricard, and that's been his best result of the season. I'm hoping to see more from him today. Whether he could get another finish inside the top 15 would be amazing, but again, it all comes back to that consistency. Less than 5 minutes remaining now in qualifying. There's Rich Jarram, John Wells, Byford Rue has stayed in position. That's not an ideal place to be, especially when Sebastian Berger's coming through the right hand and now he gets out of the way. It's Joe Warner in 17th place. Doing a good job, actually. Oh, commentator's curse on Joe as he flies into the gravel trap. Keeps it out of the wall. I think he might return to the pits, actually. So let's get on board with the drivers. What about Berger? What can he do? Can he move himself further up the field? No, he remains in 15th place. He looked very quick, I have to say, in practice earlier. He was looking very, very strong. But the real question is, can he find that front row of the grid? He's got to hook up a nice clean lap, and he's doing so at the moment. Let's stay on board with him. Into turn 4 at Surtees. That's a nice clean line through there from the Porsche. He's going to go down Pilgrim's Drop, approaching Hawthorne Bend. A critical corner on this circuit. You've got to keep the momentum up as best as you can. Into the right-hander, 4th gear, nicely over the curb. Runs us all the way up to the exit curb there. Now it's into Westfield. Oh, he's going to run all over the AstroTurf up beyond the curb in there, but he gets away with it. He's going to have to compose himself back into Sheen Curve. Oh, and he's onto the grass, and he's going to hit the wall. And there you go. That is as easy as that, ladies and gentlemen. That is how quickly it can go from being a fabulous lap to one in the barriers. And unfortunately for Berger, that's what he's just done. Now, he's got a little bit of time, I think, to get back to the pits and maybe set another lap. We've got less than 2.25 minutes to go. Let's just see if Berger does go into the pit lane, or will he carry on? No, he's going to carry on. He thinks the damage is okay to deal with, so let's see if he can adapt to that. His Porsche stablemate of Ross Harris, he's in 13th. Haven't really covered Ross so far in this session, but I'm sure we will during the hour race that is in front of us. Got a yellow flag, but that's for cars in the pit lane, so that's a bit of an issue from the timing tower. I'm sure that will be removed shortly. Fabio Matt almost inside the top 10, looking like a good qualifying session for him at the minute. But we're going to cut to the garage. We're going to go back now to the timing tower. You've got Jeffrey Van Buren leading the way on a 23.815. Howard Dunn is literally, he's in second. Then Danny's out and by is third. It all comes down to whether the rest of the field can respond. Dan Hatton, Mark Gray, Joe Warner, John Wells, Stuart Packham, they're not going to have enough time to set another lap. So that is game over for them. Sokolov comes towards the line. He's going to go on to his final flying effort. Let's get the external cameras open for that. Into the flying minute then. This is where qualifying now is really, the pressure ramps up on the drivers. They have to be able to adapt to the challenges presented to them as Fabio Matt runs deep at turn 5. But Sebastian Berger, he's shown through this practice session he's exceptionally quick. He needs to get a lap time in here with a compromised car. And that's more like it. Onto the third row of the grid for the green Porsche. Next to come across the line will be Ross Harris. He's in 14th and he's got Mark Chapman just behind him. So these two are going to get another lap potentially if they've got the fuel to do so. Ross improves but not his position. Mark Chapman stays in 6th position. Next car to come along is going to be the 87 of Nick Lamming. He will get across the line, as will Michael Vanderwall, but no improvements from those two. Nor for Dennis Penders, who is inside the top 10. So at the minute, these guys are the only ones left now who could set another full lap. So we're looking at Tony Sokolov to try and respond to the pole time from Jeffrey Van Buren. He can't. He stays in 4th place. Liam Watkinson will be looking to just close that gap down to the top 15. That'll be his aim and target, which he does. He gets within 4 seconds of the pole sitter I would say that Joe Warner and Byford Rue have not set lap times that I know that they're capable of. That's not a true reflection of their raw speed. But what can Berger do? Don't forget, he hit the wall. He's going to have some form of damage to the front end of that 992 car. But can he drag it onto the second row or the first row of the grid? He gets it to pole! Well, it doesn't matter if you've got damage. Provisional pole for the Porsche driver from Germany by 0.3 of a second. Can anyone respond to that? What about Harris? He's on a lap now. He's coming towards the start-finish line. Any improvements from him? It isn't, and that is that. Well, last gasp effort from Sebastian Berger puts him on pole position. That's a great effort. Howard Dunn, another fabulous lap time as well. Best qualifying of the season for him, starting inside the top 3. In between that, you have got Jeffrey Van Buren in second place. So really, really strong laps from those 3. Danny Zoutenbayer will start in 4th, for Tony Sokolov in 5th. Joining him on the 3rd row will be Mark Chapman. Hartle Toby and Jordan Harding are on row 4, with Dan Hatton and Dennis Penders running at the top 10. Mark Gray and Fabio Matt are on row 6, with Michael van der Waal and Ross Harris in 13th and 14th places. Rich Jarram is the last driver within 2 seconds of pole position. Then comes Liam Watkinson, Joe Warner and Jacob Byford Rue in 18th place. If we look at the other drivers who didn't set a lap time, there are a couple of reasons why they didn't set a lap time. We will talk about that in just a moment. But what we have here currently is that we've got John Wells, Stuart Packham. We also have Kevin Pereira in the M4, the number 7. First time that I've seen Kevin Pereira this season, the Frenchman, but good to have him on board. Tony Manley was out there on circuit, but looks like he didn't set a valid lap time, nor did Nick Lamming. So those two, maybe a little bit of lack of track time for those two, have cost them the opportunity to at least start inside the top 20. But Kevin Pereira, good to see him. A new driver for this season in the championship. I'm looking forward to seeing how he adapts out there on track. Okay, we're going to give ourselves just a moment to catch our breaths. We will be underway for this 1 hour race very shortly. So less than 30 seconds away then from the action here for round number 10 of the championship here for season 11 with ACC Race Nation. I'm really looking forward to this one. The drivers have been told in the pre-briefing to keep it clean and no dive bombs into turns 1 and 2. Of course, we know what the drivers are like in this lobby. They're very clean, respecting of one another, so do assume someone will go locking up into turn 1 and taking 3 or 4 drivers out. Sarcasm aside, the drivers in this league are fantastic. They know exactly how to drive. There's some really good racecraft on display, and I'm excited to see how some of the drivers at the back of the grid are going to get on. You know, Stuart Packham is always one to watch. There's also, of course, Ferreira, the new driver. See how he adapts in the M4. He's new to the championship, so I'm keen to see how he gets on. And there are other question marks coming along as well. In terms of the championship, it's going to be the biggest question. You know, it can all swing over the next 3 or 4 weeks. You know, 5 races remaining after this one. And let's also not forget that with round 11 and 12 being over the next 2 weeks at Monza and Spa respectively, after that we've got a season break, effectively a winter break. So we won't be racing for 3 weeks, and the next round, which will be number 13 at Watkins Glen, that'll have been 4 weeks without racing action. So those last 3 races can certainly cull any momentum that a driver might have when trying to bring themselves back into the championship fight. And that's why I was saying before, it's critical now. It's the critical time of the season for the drivers to make good of the momentum they've got now and try and push for those higher championship placings. For Danny Zoutenbayer, it'll be a case of trying to respond from a challenging race that he had last week at Suzuka. You know, he finished 13th. He has been on a good load of form, but the thing for Danny is that he's always finished inside the top 10 outside of last week. So what that means effectively is that his round scored that he had from Suzuka at round 9, that'll be a drop score for him. That's something that we run in this championship. So your lowest round score gets eliminated. So Danny's kind of had that opportunity to drop it, but we've still got a long way of the season to go. We've got Fabio Matt back in the pit lane. We're not quite sure why he is in there, but unfortunately the Italian has returned to the pit, so hopefully he can get back out on track shortly. But the drivers are now lining up side by side as they approach the final corner. They'll be getting directed and told by the in-game settings where they have to position themselves. I know that Ross Harris is there in 14th position, Hartle Toby's there in 7th, so I'll try and flick back through those guys when we get the lights out here at Brands Hatch. This brilliant circuit that's been open as a grass track in the 1920s and has hosted so much action. Is going to host another big event tonight, and the race is live here from Brands Hatch. That's the start that Sebastian Berger would have wanted. He's leading into turn 1, looking a little bit further back in the field as one of the cones goes flying. Hartle Toby on the inside of Mark Chapman as they approach Druids for the first time. They've got to keep things clean. There's a lot of drama in the background. There's a few cars off the road. We'll have to check back with them. John Wells is one of them. Looks like Jacob Byford-Rue and Liam Watkinson are the other drivers involved in that incident. So that's a shame for those 3. But it's very close here at the front. Hartle Toby's on the grass a little bit. He's got to be careful he doesn't go off the road. And you've got Jordan Harding just giving him a little nudge in the rear bumper. But that's just due to jacking up as Toby goes all over the grass and has a big tank slapper on the exit of turn 4, but gets away with that and carries on in a straight line. Lovely camera work straight into the barrier. Mark Gray right behind Stuart Packham and Rich Jarram, but Mark Gray's tapped the rear end of Michael van der Wal. Can he gather it all together? He can, just about. And fair racecraft from Mark Gray to let that one go, but he's going to have Nick Lamming on the inside of him for turn number 7 as they approach Sheen. In fact, Mark's all over the grass. They're trying to keep it clean, and off the road we go with Michael van der Wal. He's going to have to try and regain some ground in a moment as he gets back onto the circuit. He drops down to 18th place, but there's drama already here at the start of this race. Absolutely frenetic in the opening minute and a half, but you've got Sebastian Berger leading, Jeffrey Van Buren in 2nd, Howard Dunn in 3rd, then it's Danny Zoutenbayer, a bit of a gap back to Hartle Toby, then it's Jordan Harding, Dan Hatton, Dennis Penders. Chapman's gone backwards, as has Sokolov, so those two have had a bit of a coming together. I did see the dust getting kicked up as you've got, Rich Jarram trying to go for a lunge down the inside that was always going to be a closing door. I don't think that was an opportunity really to try and make a lunge at Druids. It looked quite tight, but alas, as a racing driver you have to go for it. And Stuart Packham has moved past the Porsche. Stuart Packham up 9 places on this circuit. What a start for the championship contender. He's absolutely flying right now, taking advantage of the drama around him. Sokolov has got in front of Mark Chapman whilst we've been talking. That's a really great camera angle, that. We love the race direction here. And Penders is in 8th position, so he's moved up from his top 10 start. Dan Hatton in 7th place with Jordan Harding just in front of him. Hartle Toby is the gap. The gap between 1st and 2nd and 3rd, they've already kind of spread themselves out a little bit, except for the latter of Howard Dunn. He's got the pressure of the reigning champion right behind him in that 29 excuse me, in that 101 Ferrari. Let's try and get on board with some of the drivers. That's the camera angle we want. You see the pressure that Zoutenbayer is applying to Dunn at Druids for the 3rd lap of the race. Lots of fights all over the field at the present moment. And the race director is going to have a hard time trying to keep on top of it, but Packham is up to 11th. That's the big story, from 20th on the grid. Oh, Nick Lamon's going to run very deep, and I think that's Tony Manley who will go through with Mark Gray. We're going to be side by side into turn 4. The Mustang Downy inside, but Laming, to his credit, trying to hold on to this. They both give each other enough racing room, and that's very respectable from the two drivers. Gray moves into 13th place, consolidates it. Now Tony Manley, we're on board of looking to the outside. There's going to be a crash there, and there is indeed, and Laming's in the wall. That's a big crash. That looked very peculiar, I have to say, and he claps the wall again. And sadly for Laming, I fear that's going to be quite spectacular damage on the front of that McLaren. And Joe Warner trying to find a way through. In fact, goes off the road almost in protest with Laming. Sadly, for the 87 McLaren, oh, as Byford Rue gets that all wrong, and that's a car going off, and that's Joe Warner into the barriers, and it has all gone wrong in a couple of laps for a number of drivers altogether. Sadly for them, it's all gone a little bit wrong. We'll try and cut to the front of the action if we can. As we try and work through, it looks like we've got a bit of a technical issue actually with the race director, so let's just see if we can. There we go, that's fine. We've managed to fix that now. But despite the chaos, and Nick Laming has gone into the pits after that bizarre incident, Sebastian Berger leads the way. I have to say, looking quite comfortable at the moment, but we saw in practice, we saw in qualifying, you can look exceptionally comfortable, but this track will bite. He's got to make sure he's keeping to a good rhythm, but he's flying along at the moment. 2.3 seconds clear of Jeffrey Van Buren then. Howard Dunn then. It's Danny Zoutenbayer. Hartle Toby's inside the top 5. Jordan Harding tracking nicely with Dan Hatton and Dennis Penders and Tony Sokolov all with him. Chapman is not too far away from that, and nor is Stuart Packham. Then there's the gap back to Ross Harris, who's doesn't look as if he's got any damage from that incident that he had with Rich Jarram. But that, we'll have to wait and see whether that is the case. Sometimes you can have a lot more damage than you realise. Ferreira is out of this race. Doesn't look like he's been able to take the start. The number 7, sadly, had joined, but for reasons unbeknownst to us, the Frenchman has gone. So the number 7 is out of the race. That's our first retirement so far. Michael van der Waal having a bit of a moment by the looks of it on the exit of Graham Hill Bend. So he's just dropped away from this fight for 12th position. We'll ride on board with Ross Harris. We'll look at it from the rear spoiler as he almost goes off the road there. But he's got 2 cars to try and protect against as Mark Gray runs very deep into Hawthorne Bend. Down through the gears, through the box for the Porsche. Got to be careful not to downshift too quickly in these cars. It can push the rear end out, which can induce oversteer and spit you off into the barriers, and that is a very realistic proposition around this 9-corner circuit. But Harris at the moment running his own race. Joe Warner in the pit, so he goes a lap down, unfortunately, after that accident he had at Sheen Curve. But Mark Gray looking quicker than Harris at the minute. Looks like there's an opportunity for him. He's going to have to go defensive, is Harris, and Gray's going to have to go the long way around. If he wants to do this, he's going to go almost all the way around the outside, door to door, and that's a fantastic overtake by Mark Gray. I have not seen an overtake around the outside of Paddock Hill Bend in a long time, but that was brilliant. Fabulous overtake from Mark Gray, and fair play to Ross Harris as well. There was no accident there. Good clean racecraft from the pair. But Mark Gray moves into 12th with an excellent move, and I'm sure he'll be smiling inside his helmet. But now Ross has to knuckle down and turn his attentions not just to the car in front, but the cars behind, because Van der Waal and Manley are not far away. Oh, I think Jordan Hardin's gone off the road. Yeah, it looks as if Jordan Hardin, yeah, he's the cause of the yellow flag. And I said you've got to be consistent. And Jordan Hardin, I don't know if he's hit the wall, but there was a yellow flag. He's emerged in front of that fight that Ross Harris was involved in. We're not getting a front external camera. We'll know if there's a bad damage if he comes into the pits or not. But Jordan Hardin was running in 6th place. He's now going to be down into 12th. So, unfortunately, for Jordan, a mistake. How that's happened to him. As he runs over the grass. But he carries on. So the damage clearly not too bad. But Tony Manley now wants to try and get him past the Porsche in front of him. Looking at the inside at turn 1. He's going to have to be a little bit patient there. Can he try and cut underneath? He can't, and now he's got to be wary of Van der Waal, but Van der Waal has a little bit of a wiggle on the exit at Paddock Hill Bend, so can't get the momentum he needs to go past. This is the action that we're concentrating on at the moment. These aren't the only fights, of course. Dennis Penders has got a trio of cars behind him as well, as Race Direction flicks their way through the cameras that are available. But Tony Manley looks like the next driver who wants to go to get past Harris. But I have to be honest with you, maybe Harris is carrying some damage from that incident with Jaron before. Manley looking at the inside, and that's going to be a clean overtake. And I think Harris let that one go, to be honest. And it makes me confirm my suspicions, really, that Harris is carrying damage on that Porsche. And the 244 is sliding back down the field, and I feel that Michael Van der Waal will be the next driver to get to him. Hardin's recollected himself after that, has pulled away from that group, so I think Hardin's had a spin, but he's not look like he's got any damage. He might have nudged the front bumper. I'm just trying to see from the camera angles. No, it looks okay, so maybe he's had a spin, but one of the top 6 has already fallen victim to an incident as Liam Watkinson now moves into the pit lane. But Van der Waal is the one that we're watching. We're on board with him down the inside at Druids. Oh, he locks up and goes wide at the corner and then kicks the car out with a bit of frustration oversteer, and Ross Harris moves back in front of him. What it's done, what Hardin's demise has done, is it brought Dan Hatton into 6th place, and he's doing quite a solid job. He's actually closed the gap up to Hartle Toby, who, don't forget, is carrying that 15 kilos of ballast. But Hatton doing a strong job, and he just needs to keep doing what he's doing right now. He wants another top 5 position. He's had 2 this season. Can he get a 3rd? Nick Lamming still running around. He's 2 laps down at the moment, but that's not what's important. It's about getting the mileage in, developing the car, developing his own performance. He's got Joe Warner just in front of him, who you, in the nicest way possible to Joe, Lamming is a quicker driver, but Joe can be more consistent. And sure enough, down the, well, I was going to say down the inside, but is he going to try around the outside at Graham Hill Bend? Joe goes defensive, and that's going to be a nice switch back. And oh dear, Lamming hits the rear bumper. I think he'll wait for Joe. I don't think he's going to be unsportsmanlike. And speaking of going off the road, you've got Fabio Matt and Jacob Byford-Rue sliding off into the gravel trap. So a number of drivers now starting to struggle, and Joe Warner sadly having to wait to try and rejoin the circuit. Stuart Packham, though, is inside the top 10 from 19th place. I've recorrect myself from before. I said 20th, it was actually 19th. So Packham doing a really good comeback drive at the minute. And the man who chooses to start from the back of the field is exceptionally competitive and looking for another championship I mean, this would be some crown if he were able to take it, but he is at the back of this quartet, fronted by Tony Sokolov, punctuated by Dennis Penders, and accentuated by Mark Chapman in 9th position. You can see the gravel and the grass being kicked up, and I think Hartle-Toby's having a bit of a struggle here. I'm just going to have a look. Yeah, Dan Hatton is all over the pressure of Hartle-Toby. He's applying that readily to the Mustang. In fact, having said that though, I think there's another car in front of us. It is Nick Lamming who's kicking up grass. And if he's got damage, he needs to pull into the pits and get rid of it. Get that fixed by the mechanics. But Hatton is... Ooh, as Lamming spins in front of us. Hopefully he'll just stay. Green flags flying now for the rest of the circuit as the drivers make their way through. But Hatton really showing some maturity at the moment. Applying the pressure to the Mustang in front of us. Doing his absolute utmost to try and force a mistake from that Mustang. And you saw the rear end of the 208 just have a slide. Mid-corner. Where could that end up? Got to be very, very careful here today. Certainly looking like there's going to be a few problems out there for a number of drivers. And there you go, that's what I was talking about. And Hartle-Toby goes round. He's in the middle of the road. He's going to slide out of the way. And he's going to try and reverse off the circuit. He gets the car spun round. But I said that Hatton was applying the pressure. And that's what you were after. And Hartle-Toby spins it up out of turn number 6. And that's going to drop him. I'm going to estimate that's dropped him in front of Mark Gray. So he's going to be in 10th place still. But that's what happens when you apply the pressure. And we've also got some more dramas that have gone on. So Stuart Packham's now up to 7th place. Penders and Chapman are behind him thanks to the issues that went on with Hartle-Toby. So that's... Well, I was going to say that's dropped them down a couple of places, but Penders is managing to stay in front of the Aston Martin. One thing that Chapman will have difficulty with is that, and I've mentioned this before about Penders, he is the hardest Belgian in the world to try and overtake. And in this series, he is incredibly brilliant at defensive driving. It's not going to be easy to get past that 103 Ferrari. Admittedly, we are coming into the quarter mark of this race now. And for Chapman, he might start to think about an earlier pit stop just to try and get a bit of breathing room and maybe undercut the Belgian. We'll have to wait and see, but strategy will start to enter the minds of the drivers now that we're a quarter of the race distance gone. Howard Dunn still absorbing that pressure really nicely from Danny Zoutenbayer at the moment. Looking for that first podium with ACC Race Nation. In terms of the comments that I've got at the moment, JB saying Byford Rue won the Ginetta Championship. Well done, Jacob. That's a great result for you. It's part of the ACC boys. And hello to Mikey as well, who hopefully is still watching the stream. Good to have you, mate. Chapman running in 9th place, trying to probe and press for a way past this Ferrari, this car, this 4-4. Excuse me, this 111 Ferrari is having a great time out there, but can the 296 GT3 driver stay ahead of Chapman? We've seen him do it before. He can do it with a number of drivers, but that question will be answered over the course of this next 43 minutes. Good to see you, Mike. I'm glad you're still here. Now, further back, Hartle-Toby is now leading a trio of drivers, including Jordan Harding, who is recovering, and Hartle-Toby. Now, Mark Gray's gone backwards, so Mark Gray looks like a bit of damage to the front of that Mustang. So I think Gray's had a spin out there on circuit, because that's put Jordan now into 11th place, and Hartle-Toby's going to run wide, and I think Harding's going to go through thanks to the race direction camera. No, he does not. He stays behind, in fact. So Toby's really struggling with that car in the middle sector. It just does not seem compliant. Blue flags flying for John Wells, who's going to have to get out of the way. And that's certainly compromising these three drivers at the moment. Hartle-Toby 6 seconds behind Mark Chapman in 9th place, but I am surprised that Wells hasn't moved over just yet. But the M4 still decided to remain there, and that's going to cause more problems. Hartle-Toby's run deep. This is an opportunity, is it, for Jordan Harding? He goes a little bit wide, does Toby, and that's down the inside for the McLaren. The black, orange and white. Number 16 is going to get a nice clean overtake thanks to the issues presented by the M4 in front of us. But Toby not giving this up through Graham Hill Bend. But Jordan consolidates it, and then it's another little slide for Toby. And Tony Manley just about reacting in time. He's got a opportunist overtake at turn 4. That's going to be brave from the 318, and the Mustang all over the grass. That is going to be momentum surely for the Aston Martin, as one of the bollards for the braking boards gets completely wiped off the circuit. But the Italian moves into 11th, so Hartle-Toby really struggling, really having difficulties. He's looking at the inside at turn 6, but that's realistically, that's not an overtaking opportunity unless there's a mistake around you. Try and get a nice camera angle. There we go, we'll go with that one. Jeffrey Van Buren still running in 2nd place. Howard Dunn still has the reigning champion of Danny Zoutenbayer just behind him. Dan Hatton having a big slide through Paddock Hill Bend, and Sokolov running into the gravel and closing the gap down to the number 55. So Sokolov, he was impeded earlier, had that issue earlier on. He's now trying to fight his way back through. But he's got to try and find a way past the very spirited Dan Hatton at the moment, who's again showcasing that raw performance he has. Consistency is critical. It's the M4 of, I'm going to say, Joe Warner moving out of the way. Packham in 7th place, up 11 spots, 12 spots in fact. He's absolutely flying. Penders still has Chapman behind him, and now I'm curious to see what Jordan Harding and Tony Manley can do in clean air now that they don't have Hartle-Toby. There you go, the M4 of John Wells only now getting out of the way, so I think there's going to be a few people a bit frustrated at that. Here comes Hartle-Toby. This is an opportunity down the inside at turn 6. I said before, it's not normally an overtaking spot, but the Mustang is going to give it a try. They're side by side into the corner. Into Sheen they go, and it's a complete move from Hartle-Toby. I mean, that is not an overtake you see at turn 6 and 7, but you have to take your hat off to him. He's made a brave overtake stick. And now for Hartle-Toby, after that couple of laps where he seemed to struggle, he's now got to try and build on this. He's got to try and push forward, gain some momentum. Can he go after Jordan Harding? We know he's quick enough. Whoa, Jordan Harding in the foreground there, almost losing it at turn 1. And that's the other McLaren, I think, of Fabio Matt, just moving out of the way in the 167. Yeah, it was. So there's Fabio Matt getting out of the way. But 20 minutes down, a third of the race gone. We're right on board with the drivers, but Packham in this trio fight for the top 5. The drivers ahead of them, though, are comfortably clear. Oh, that's wide for Sokolov. Just about regained control of the car. I thought for a moment that was going to spit him off the road. And you could see Packham was anticipating that opportunity there. Wasn't close enough on this occasion. But so far, the front 4 are in a very strong position right now. The front 4 seemingly are in a different category of class almost. They are absolutely flying. Zoutenbayer, though, still plastered onto the rear spoiler of Howard Dunn after 20 minutes. Ooh, both taking not typical lines through Surtees there. That was a bit of a peculiar one. They both ran very, very deep. Dunn more so than Zout, but they both got away with it. And Mark Chapman's found a way past Dennis Penders, so we haven't seen it, but Chappers has forced a way through. He now is in 8th position. And whilst that was going on, Jordan Harding has been closing the gap down. So after that mistake earlier, Harding still has the speed and the confidence to push on. So he's back inside the top 10. Let's see where he goes from here. Strategy is going to be critical now for the rest of the race. That's Tony Manley going off the road in the background. I thought I saw it in the rear camera. Gets back onto the circuit. How close do you want to go to the grass there at the Exeter Surtees? Now seemingly seemingly the on-track action outside of this trio has died down, but you can see Sokolov really pushing the limits. He's trying to find a way through, and Packham now trying to put Sokolov onto different lines. He's trying to force the Croatian off the track in a way where he could find an opportunity to slip through. And that's how you get the overtakes done around this circuit. It's about capitalising on an error from the driver in front. We saw it before when Hatton was putting the pressure on Hartle-Toby and Hartle ended up going off the road. This can happen here. But Sokolov is no stranger to pressure in the slightest. He's an incredibly quick driver. He's looking at the inside of Hatton there, but not quite close enough on that occasion. Let's see if we can skip ahead to him by going through the race director menu in an odd way. Sokolov just having a little bit of a snap mid-corner there. You can see he wants to get on with it. It feels like Sokolov at this point in the race is quicker than Hatton, but how does he go about overtaking him now in the next few minutes? Does he dive to the inside of the pits? No. So continuing on with the strategy. Key part of this race though for Sokolov. These three doing 25s at the moment, dictated by Hatton's defensive driving. Kind of lapping at the same speed as Dennis Pender's in 8th place at the minute. Harding is going a little bit quicker in 9th. Just bear with me just for a moment. Looks like we've got a issue with the microphone. So that gap ebbing and flowing between Sokolov and Packham for 6th and 7th. I think Packham, I don't think he's making mistakes. I think sometimes... Oh, Byford Rue all over the road. Hopefully that doesn't affect anybody. No, Byford Rue managed to gather it all together. No concerns for the three drivers trying to lap him. But that would have got the drivers to stay alert, for sure. That would have definitely gathered their attention. And there you go, Sokolov into the pit. So I had a feeling that Sokolov would try something a little bit different. So the first of the front runners to make a pit stop, just having a look back, Mark Chapman made a pit stop earlier on, but he's technically a lap down at the moment, so he's trying to bring his way back through the field. So where will Sokolov emerge in the pack? Now, this group was in front of Chapman by a fair distance, to be honest, by at least 7 or 8 seconds. Michael van der Waal kind of on his own now in 11th place currently. But there has been a little bit of a change further up the field. Jeffrey Van Buren has had a moment somewhere off the track, and that's now a trio fight for 2nd place. So the Dutchman's had an error, and Howard Dunn at the moment on for a best ever finish within ACC Race Nation, even if he finishes in 4th. So he's got extra motivation to try and push up to the back of the Dutchman of Van Buren and try and find a way through. Do any of those three go into the pits? No, the race leader has also carried on. Dan Hatton has got the gap between himself and Stuart Packham of where the Ferrari of Sokolov would have been, and there is Sokolov. He's now in 14th place and quite some distance ahead of Chapman, so I think Chapman's had some damage from that incident earlier with Hartle-Toby. Jordan Harding still running in 8th place. In fact, is really starting to close the gap down on the Belgian of Dennis Penders. Look at that gap, he's now 4 seconds. That was 6 only 2 or 3 laps ago. So Harding getting the motor moving. Oh, Packham off the road at Graham Hill Bend there. So maybe the big Bentley's tyres now are starting to cry a little bit, which doesn't surprise me with the weight of that car. It can be exceptionally challenging to try and get it to be compliant on tyre wear. So Packham's going to have to work on that as best as he can. And Danny Zoutenbayer's got in front of Howard Dunn. Whilst we were talking, all the action appears to be happening at times when we're not catching it, which is really, really frustrating. But it has resulted in the reigning champion moving on to the top 3 places in the podium, and Zoutenbayer carries on, as does Howard Dunn. So those two are going to continue on. No pit stop for them just yet. Tony Manley running inside the top 10. Just looking to see John Wells. I think he's a lap down at the moment, but he has made a pit stop. So how accurate that is, we'll have to find out. We know pit stops at Brands Hatch aren't as lengthy as other race circuits that we go to on the calendar. However, it is a shorter lap, so it will throw the timing tower up and down a little bit over the coming laps. Oh, Byford Rue, that's going to be a big barrier moment, and sure enough, he does hit the wall into the tyre stacks. He gets back out on circuit, but he's going to have to be careful. Doesn't want to impede anybody else's race. Joe Warner's still circulating in his M4. Well, he was circulating. He's now lawnmowering and then playing in the gravel trap. Fisher Price ball sets are available for Joe if he wants to purchase those. It is Black Friday coming up. Packham, though, still circulating. He's still shadowing Hatton at the moment. That's the best phrase I can use, really. He's not applying huge amounts of pressure to the McLaren 55, but he is stalking him, and sometimes that can be a little bit more pressurising than having a car directly behind you. It can psychologically get into the drivers' heads, as we see more pit stops coming from Howard Dunn. Actually has made a pit stop, so this is important as we move over to the halfway mark of this race. Howard Dunn, the first of the front runners in the top 4, has made a pit stop. He's there right now. Everyone outside of the top 10 has made a pit stop. We have lost a couple of drivers as well. Did talk about Ferreira before. Rich Jarham also went off. And Nick Lamming, I believe, has also retired from the race. And in fact, Nick Lamming is very unhappy with a particular driver in the lobby. I won't mention names, but let's say some fruity language was utilised in the description of one of the drivers. Now, Howard Dunn is getting moving. Sokolov is coming around the final corner. He had to navigate as well around Byford Rue. But that's encouraging for Mark Gray, who's a little bit further back in 15th place. But it's encouraging for Howard Dunn. He's got to get those tyres up to temperature, but he's remained in front of Sokolov, who had a couple of laps of undercut here. And sure enough, Sebastian Berger now notices the undercut potential. He's gone in early, as has Danny Zoutenbayer. But Van Buren carries on. Critical phase of the race now. Now, admittedly, Berger was far enough ahead to not be worried about the undercut, but Zoutenbayer wasn't. So Hatton, who will go past him and go behind him in the pit lane, he'll be watching that with interest in terms of the drivers around him. But Howard Dunn, right now, is in a position. Can he undercut? Oh, as if he runs that wide, he won't be able to undercut him. But Howard Dunn is in a glorious position here to try and overtake Danny Zoutenbayer in the pit stops. Well, following the AMR V8 right now, can he pull it off? It's going to be exceptionally close. And as I'm talking, we've just lost the race feed. So if my estimations are correct in terms of the undercut power around here, I reckon that Howard Dunn is going to come out in front of Danny Zoutenbayer. It's going to be exceptionally close. I know from the track map that I'm looking at the minute here, it is exceptionally tight. We've got Zoutenbayer coming out of the pit lane. We have now got the feed back, and there you go. That is it, confirmed on circuit. Howard Dunn has done a great job in this race. But I tell you what hasn't helped him is that Danny Zoutenbayer, unfortunately for him, has not changed his tyres, and I reckon that's the difference in 8 seconds between the two. Now then, Howard Dunn, they will have the attentions of Sokolov behind him, but if he does have fresh tyres, he will be able to make use of them later on. Zoutenbayer is 8 seconds up the road, which makes me think he's got no new tyres on and he's going to try and take them to the end. Sokolov is looking very quick though at the minute, so this race is firmly in the balance. Van Buren now coming out of the pit lane. Berger goes through. He won't be an issue. Danny Zoutenbayer is trying to find a way past Ross Harris. This is for position as well. There's Jeffrey Van Buren, and Zoutenbayer's been hit by Harris, and that's in the wall. The championship leader is in the barriers after contact with Ross Harris. That's going to be major damage for the 101 Ferrari. And I'd be surprised if he doesn't have to pit. And Howard Dunn's gone off the road there as well at Paddock Hill Bend in the background. So 26 minutes remaining in the race, and it's all turned on its head. Danny Zoutenbayer for position was fighting with Ross Harris, who hasn't yet made a pit stop, but he doesn't have to give the position up, of course. And contact fired the 101 into the barriers, and that looks significant to me. I'd be surprised if he gets away with that. Well, well, well. The championship leader, if he has to pit and go and fix that damage, that's going to drop him right down the field, and he's struggling to keep it on the circuit. In fact, Sokolov is gaining time on him hand over fist, so that is less than ideal. Jordan Harding and Tony Manley, they're the last of the top two to go into the pits. Of course, they are running in first and second, but they're now in there. So Sebastian Berger resumes lead of the race here in the 318 Porsche. Jeffrey Van Buren will comfortably be in second place now, and Ross Harris will move into third place. Of course, he will be the only driver yet to make a pit stop, and sadly Danny Zoutenbayer is confirmed as having to go into the pits. So net third position will be Sokolov once Ross Harris makes that pit stop. Howard Dunn is fourth, but he's now got Dan Hatton and Stuart Packham behind him. And if he thought he had pressure before for a podium, he's now got pressure over a net fourth position. So this is a fight that will keep a key interest on. Chapman is in 8th place, and Jordan Harding has come out behind Hartle Toby, which will have infuriated him because he got past the Mustang before, but the undercut has worked in Toby's favour. Tony Manley has exited the pits. He's in 12th. He's in front of the lapped Fabio Matt. Michael van der Waals having a very anonymous race in 13th, but I don't think he will mind that, providing he gets to the end. And Jordan Harding has got past Toby, so nice move that on the exit of Graham Hill Bend, and then confirmed it at Surtees. So the McLaren now in 9th place. Going to be a trial and a tribulation to try and get 6 seconds closed on Mark Chapman in 8th place. But we will have to wait and see. We'll watch his progress with Ernest in these remaining 23 minutes. But this is the fight that we're watching right now, as Ross Harris makes that pit stop, so he'll drop outside of the top 10. Dan Hatton running in 5th position. Oh, that was exceptionally late on the brakes from Hatton there. Wow, that was incredibly brave. And Howard Dunn's struggling with turn 1. He's struggling with the exit of Paddock Hill Bend. I'm seeing the car gyrating a little bit on the curbs, and I'm wondering whether his ride height is just a little bit too low for the right-hander of 1. Oh, Hatton got that all wrong out of Graham Hill Bend. Thankfully, Stuart Packham is not quite close enough for a move on him yet, as he has a squirrel of oversteer on the exit of turn 4. This is still up in the balance. 22 minutes and 28 seconds remaining. There is a fight going on for a spot in the top 4. There's a car running wide in front of us, but that's Joe. Looks like that was actually Tony Sokolov who ran wide. I was going to say Joe Warner, but that wouldn't be correct. So Sokolov just about hanging on to the car through Surtees at turn 4 there. Well, as I said earlier, Hatton looking for another finish inside the top 5. It would be his 3rd top 5 result of the season, which is really good going for a man who's in his debut season, from what I can recall in terms of ACC Race Nation. But he's having a good time out there, as is Packham. Don't forget Packham up from 19th on the grid, 13 places gained. It's absolutely phenomenal. He's just following the two of them, doing what he must. John Wells is a lap down, but inside the top 15, which, to be honest, after the incident he had on lap 1, turn 1, I don't think he'll be too disappointed with that at the minute. Byford Rue, Joe Warner still circulating on track. There's Packham in the big Bentley. Mark Gray right behind Ross Harris, who runs a little bit deep at Clark Curve, and this is an opportunity for Mark Gray, and Harris couldn't close the door quick enough. And the Mustang will move into 13th place. His Ford stablemate running in 9th position, but he will have the attentions of that guy behind him, Dennis Penders in the 103 Ferrari, who's looked very competitive this evening. Has Penders, you know, last time I commentated on him, he was leading the race legitimately at Paul Ricard. There's certainly been a confidence boost from the Belgian, and he's now putting the 208 under immense pressure here at Brands Hatch. Fabulous circuit to go racing at. We have a yellow flag in front of us, but that is for Joe Warner, who is in the pit lane, so that is nothing for the drivers to worry about. There's our race leader. He is miles in front at the moment. Berger is having a great time out there. And just for your own information for everybody, in terms of the context of the results that he has had this season, you know, Berger has entered 2 races so far in this championship, but was unable to start them. But last season, when I watched him racing, I believe he had a stretch of 4 races where he was either first or second. And I'm not surprised that Berger has joined in for the first time properly this season and is out at the front. He has a level and a measure of consistency that you don't see amongst drivers sometimes. He is sometimes a step above, and he's having a great time out there right now. He's over 13 seconds clear, well, 12 seconds clear of Jeffrey Van Buren, who is no slouch at all, is the Dutchman. But Sebastian Berger's last lap was a 23.9 and Van Buren's was a 24.7. That's impressive from the 5.85. Fabio Matt having dust kicked up in front of him. He's still circulating in 17th position. We've got a car coming into the pits, and that's Danny Zoutenbayer again, so there's more issues for the reigning champion. It's going from bad to worse, and what was looking like a finish on the podium, perhaps. That accident with Ross Harris has completely curtailed his race, really, for any of the major points. So that 13th position from last week at Suzuka, that won't be his lowest result anymore, and his drop score, it will be tonight. That's going to have a huge impact in the championship standings. There he is in the pits. Jeffrey Van Buren, he's been pretty solid through the race. He had that little issue earlier, but it doesn't seem to have affected him since. He's nearly 10 seconds clear of Sokolov, who is only a couple of tenths clear of Howard Dunn. So I can only presume that Sokolov's tyres are starting to go off the cliff here. You know, we're almost in the final quarter of this race. And for Sokolov, it's been a strange race for Sokolov actually, because he's a driver who this season has been incredibly quick. He's competed in, I believe he's competed in 8 races this season. He's won 5 of them. You know, he's been mightily impressive. The only race he finished where he didn't score the victory was at round 1, where he finished 2nd. So the other 2 results he's had were retirements. Always done just gets a unsettled moment in his AMR V8 there. For Sokolov, he's clearly having some struggles, but so is Dunn now that we're on board with him. So him and Hatton looking to apply the pressure on the man who knows how to win races this season, and looking for their first podiums within the championship. What a story that could be. But at the minute it looks like Hatton is very close. You saw in the rear view mirror there how brilliant on the brakes that McLaren is. See if we can skip. There we go. On the effectively dash cam with the McLaren, who kicks up the oversteer on the exit of Sterling's there. Oh, Dunn runs very deep at the final corner onto the grass. You could see the way that the wheels were getting suctioned off the road, but he just managed to regather himself. Look how late on the brakes Hatton is. I wonder if the drivers are struggling with brake temperatures. It was a big issue at the Red Bull Ring, and I wonder if some of the drivers are starting to have to manage their temperatures a little bit more. It doesn't look like it's a problem for Hatton. It looks like he can lean on the full use of the 720S Avos, but this could be momentous here for the 55. I said before, he wants to get a third top 5 of the season. He's only 2 seconds away from a podium, which is about what he was when he finished 4th at Zolder back at round 4. He wasn't far away that day, but he's got to get past 2 drivers in the remaining quarter of this race, and that will be no easy feat. He runs deep there, everyone running wide on the exit of Westfield, but seems the AstroTurf is doing its job. We've got a drive-through penalty for, I'm going to say that's Fabio Matt. It will be in the 167, so unfortunately for the Italian, he's going to have to serve that in the next 3 laps. If he doesn't, he'll get disqualified from the race. Just on board with Stuart Packham in 6th place. This is the closest fight on circuit. This is the closest battle. And you see at the minute Hatton just having a few wobbles on that lap meant he had the slowest lap time of this quartet. But Sokolov has managed to repel a little bit of that pressure from Howard Dunn. That gap's just over a second at the minute. But into the latter stages of the racing, the drivers will, if they're in this fight, will be getting a little bit twitchy. They'll be getting a little bit anxious, a little bit antsy to try and make a manoeuvre. And as I said before, this circuit will bite back. And that's exactly what the drivers will not want to happen. They know that they've got to keep this on the circuit to have any chance at a prospective podium. Now, I know that for Packham, who we're on board with, as Hatton runs wide at Hawthorne Bend, I know that Packham will be sitting there thinking, I will wait for all of this to kick off in front of me, and if someone goes off the road, I'll take advantage of it when it happens. We do have a car that has just retired, so we've lost, sadly, somebody else. Oh, we've got, that's Byford Rue. Oh, Byford Rue, that was very awkward. I don't think he realised Packham was coming through, so that's actually compromised the Bentley, and he's going to be at least a second and a half behind the McLaren of Dan Hatton. Well, yeah, there you go, 1.4 seconds practically. It's and a half. So someone else has sadly gone from the race. We've lost a few drivers this evening. I think, yeah, I'm right in saying it is Danny Zoutenbayer. Less than ideal. And Danny Zoutenbayer not impressed with the incident that happened before. He's giving some feedback to the driver he made contact with. is how I would describe it. Sebastian Berger, though, you won't really know much about the goings on behind him. He has been completely solid, and his performance tonight has been mightily impressive. Imagine what this guy could do with a full season in ACC Race Nation. You would put your bets on for him potentially to win the championship. Not sure what's going on with Packham's car. For some reason it seems to be visually glitching back into the pits as Jeffrey Van Buren runs very, very deep at Clark. There's a fight on for 14th place. So Ross Harris. Oh, I thought that Wells was going to run into the back of Harris, but he's going to be on the inside here at Druids. He's got a car alongside. He just needs to brake a little bit later than the Porsche. Keep that tighter line and moves into 14th place. Little kick of oversteer as he just tried to consolidate that position, but he gets past the Porsche Harris. And the gaps have changed a little bit. So Hatton has fallen away from Howard Dunn. So 1.7 seconds behind Dunn, who is going with Sokolov at the moment. He's really trying to force the yellow Ferrari driver into a mistake. The number 100 is doing everything he can. You can see Sokolov running a little bit wide at a few corners. But can Dunn make enough of an impression to get onto the podium for the first time? Can he do it? It's a tall order. It's a tall order to try and overtake that Dayglow yellow Ferrari with the grey stripes through the middle of it. It is quite... Oh, Dunn running wide again. I've seen a few drivers. They are pushing so hard. Lap times on this tour, 25 flat from Sokolov, a 25.2 from Dunn, a 25.3 from Hatton, and a 24.9 from Packham. So Packham marginally quicker than these two fighting over the last spot on the podium. If Sokolov does finish in third, it will be, incredibly, the worst finish of the season that he's had. You have to exclude the two retirements that he's had because those aren't classified as finishes. But it just shows you the measure of consistency that this Croatian man does have. He was third in season 9. Can he do anything about improving on that? Can he fight for the championship this season? He's one of those drivers in the discussion. I think it's too close to call right now. There's a number of drivers who could all still have a big part to play in the remaining 5 rounds. There's a yellow flag. That's Joe Warner, who's gone off, unfortunately, at Sheen Curve. He seems to be having quite a lot of difficulty with that corner, but a good thing about Joe is that when he does have an incident, he's just staying off the road. He'll get himself going in a moment. There you go. He's back on circuit and back moving, so the yellow flags get removed by the marshals. But less than 10 minutes remain here with the 10th round of the season with ACC Race Nation. And Sokolov and Dunn set exactly the same lap time on that lap. That to the 1,000th of a second. That's incredible. Oh, Sokolov's going to get impeded by Harris, who was trying to move out of the way. In fact, he gets right out of the way in the end. But that will have cost the Croatian about a 10 for 2 there. Doesn't look like Dunn's fully capitalised on that, though, to be honest. I think Dunn might have seen it and maybe had a little oversteer moment. So for the time being, that gap out at 1.2 seconds. And in fact, Hatton is coming back at Dunn, so you cannot rule out that 55. He's doing an ace job at the minute. Chapman, since his battle with Penders earlier, has kind of been at a distance to the leading group. You feel that if he weren't in that fight with a couple of other drivers, he on another day would be near the front. But the driver in second in the standings, he won't be too displeased with this result. It's all about point accumulation, and that is exactly what he is after. Can he do anything, though? Can he do anything to move forward? He's going to be, as it stands, level on points with Stuart Packham. And if my mathematics is correct, those two will be leading the championship jointly on points going into the next round of the season at round 11. So that is something that we'll have to see how that develops. Obviously, the next race will be at Monza on the 3rd of December. Let's go back to this fight, though, over the podium place, the last spot on the podium. And Dan Hatton, you can see in the camera in the middle right of his screen there, is looming large in that screen. So for Howard Dunn in the 23, he has to find a way of attacking and defending. He's in the least opportune position, really. It's the place that you wouldn't want to be as a driver. You'd rather be either attacking from the third of the three cars or defending as the first car at the front of this train. Now they are coming up to John Wells again, who has got a little bit of form of tonight of not letting drivers through. And that's not a criticism of John. I just think tonight at the minute he's doing his utmost to get around the circuit. But they are only less than 2 seconds behind, so blue flags will be shown for the M4 in just a moment. But you can see, ooh, little slide from Dunn. He's trying to get on with things. But you can see that the red and yellow McLaren is also there. Packham's dropped a little bit further away. And I feel like the Bentley's tyres around this circuit are just hindering the 108 to push further up through the field. You know, 6th place is still a fabulous result. But I tell you what, this is a chance. Sokolov run deep. That's why I cut off from myself there for a moment. I thought the Croatian had gone deep, and Dunn was exceptionally close to the back of the 100 Ferrari. This is it now. Last 5 and a bit minutes. If you want to be a hero and get your first ever podium, you have to find a way past the man who seems impenetrable at times this season. As they go around Sterling's for the 37th time, number 23, Aston Martin V8 is doing his absolute maximum effort to find a way past a man who has run 5 races this season, and the guy who is behind us is looking also for his first podium in the championship. I was close from Hatton. We saw how close he got then in the McLaren. We know how good that he is on the brakes in that car. And Dunn's trying to attack and defend, but you can see him soaring away at the wheel there as he went around Surtees. And it's just cost him that little bit of momentum. Now the thing is that John Wells is now a second in front of these 3 drivers. He's still not moved out of the way. The blue flags are out. There's a yellow flag out there. That's for Byford Rue off the road. Thankfully won't interrupt their races. This is not what you want right now. If you're the Croatian in front of us in the form of Sokolov, you do not want to have this car right there. Runs a little bit deep, and we know that slower drivers, they'll take slightly different lines, and that might just throw off Sokolov and Dunn, or even Hatton. You just don't know. He's going to run very deep. He's going to be on the grass. He gets away with it. Dunn is not quite close enough for a lunge at Paddock Hill Bend. Hatton waiting in the wings, trying to find a way through. A little bit of a slide. This is the opportunity. He goes to the outside line at Druids. Can he find a way through? No is the answer. Sokolov covers the inside line, but that was the first chance he's had. That was the first time that Sokolov has really had to go defensive. We ride on board with Dan Hatton. That's a big slide. Out of Graham Hill Bend for Dunn. The AMR V8 breaking traction, but they're still squabbling over positions, and Wells is still not moving out of the way. I think there's going to be a few words to be had in the driver's lounge later on. But less than 3 minutes to go. Oh, Hatton closing right up to the back of Dunn there. He's got so much confidence on the brakes as Hatton, but just isn't quite close enough each time to try and make a move. And look at this. I've got to say, Wells got to get out of the way. And I think he is. Oh, he's running to the back of him. Sokolov runs into the back of him, and then he's going to get in the way for Dunn. Is he going to move? I don't think he's going to move. Well, I've got to say, I'm a little bit flabbergasted by that. Now he's getting out of the way for blue flags. Hatton's going to go through as well. Oh, he had to brake so much later, he didn't know where Wells was. And well, that literally has reshaped the race. And the other thing is, look in the camera here in the middle of the screen. Stuart Packham has joined the fight again. So all of that build-up has brought Packham right back into the thick of the action with less than 2 minutes remaining in this race. It's a quartet fighting over one place on the podium, but Sokolov has that position right now. Yellow flag flies, but I think that was for Joe Warner going off the road. That won't be an issue. They've gone past him. But hold on to your hats, everybody. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. We are into the final 75 seconds of the session. Final lap of the race for Sebastian Berger, who has been absolutely dominant this evening. He's had a wonderful drive. Let's not forget Jeffrey Van Buren in second place as well has also been in a little planet of his own. But these four are trying to find a step to the podium. Can they climb onto it on this, effectively, on this final lap of the race? Little bit of a wiggle. This is as close that Dunn has been through the whole time that we've been watching. He's looking to the outside at turn one. Sokolov goes defensive, moves to the middle of the road, gets the braking a little bit sharper than what he would have liked. A little wiggle in the corner. He's going to look to the outside now as Dunn. But he can't find a way through. Hatton's there. You can see the bonnet of the red McLaren, but that's not going to be a way past. Only a few corners to go. Here at Brands Hatch, it's been a great race. But for Dunn, he's running out of time. He's running out of corners. He's running out of miles to get past this Ferrari. Sokolov is keeping it nice and tidy. Packham was very close as well there, but he couldn't find a way past. Look at this man though. Sebastian Berger has been absolutely phenomenal this evening. He is going to take the victory and wins his first race of the season for ACC Race Nation. A great result for Berger. Van Buren's going to come home in second, but we're watching the fight for third. And I don't think, unless Sokolov gets it wrong in these last two corners, Dunn keeping in the straight line. He just about held a slide through Surtees there. How he got away with it, I don't know. Great car control. But he's going to be under pressure from Hatton, who's looking left, he's looking right. In fact, Dunn just moves to the middle of the road to stop any opportunities going through. Van Buren finishes second. Good drive from him. Sokolov will stay on the podium for another attempt this season. Howard Dunn, best ever results in fourth place. He should be proud of that. Dan Hatton going off the road for fifth place there in the end. Stuart Packham, good result in sixth. Chapman in seventh. Hartle Toby has managed to get in front of Harding in the end after that race-long fight. Oh, don't want to lose it on the final corner though. Toby is going to finish in 8th place. Harding will be a bit frustrated in 9th there with the mistake he had earlier. Penders will get another top 10 result. Mr. Consistent is the Belgian. And the last driver on the lead lap. Take a bow, Tony Manley. This has been a really great effort from you, sir. The Italian on the lead lap in 11th place. I'm sure he'll be delighted with that as Ross Harris and Fabio Matt come across the line. So these are the provisional results. Sebastian Berger, absolutely dominant this evening. There he is coming down the pit lane in the 585 Porsche. A victory for him from Jeffrey Van Buren and Tony Sokolov in third place. Howard Dunn gets his best result of the season in fourth position. I'm sure he'll be wishing that he'd got onto the podium, but a fourth place, another great result for him. That pushes him into contention for a top 10 result in the drivers' standings. Dan Hatton is fifth in the end with Stuart Packham in sixth. Mark Chapman in 7th, and then you move a bit further back with the rest of the group. Hartle Toby in 8th place, Jordan Harding and Dennis Penders inside the top 10. Tony Manley in 11th. Michael van der Waal had an anonymous race, but he had a few slides through it. He'll be happy with 12th. Mark Gray in 13th. John Wells in 14th, who was effectively a rolling roadblock at times. 15th went the way of Ross Harris with Fabio Matt in 16th. Jacob Byford-Rue had a stop-go penalty that he didn't serve. He ended up 9 laps down in 17th. Joe Warner in 18th, and we lost from the race. Danny Zoutenbayer. Big news, that one, really. That's the big shock of this race. Losing him, that's going to affect his championship challenge. Liam Watkinson, Nick Lamming, Rich Jarron, and, of course, Ferreira as well. Kevin Pereira, that is, in the number 7, who didn't, sadly, get onto circuit. But in terms of the championship, we are now into the final third of the season here with season 11. We're going to be going off to Monza next week, which I will be commentating on. There's going to be a little bit of a switch in the format, so I'll be commentating on round 11, but I will be unable to commentate on round 12 at Spa, which is the 2-hour race, sadly. After that, we'll have the winter break, and then we will move back into the championship in January with Watkins Glen, Valencia and the Nordschleife. But you will hear from me and my dulcet tones next week. But wherever it might be in the big wide world, thank you very much for watching the round 10 of the season 11 ACC Race Nation Championship with me, Jack Millington, your commentator for the series. And wherever it might be in the big wide world, thank you very much for watching, and have a wonderful day, evening or night. Bye for now.